your unprocessed material is your data or your information. And only once you've evaluated it and picked for reliability, only then does it become intelligence, because only then is it something that you can use.
Welcome to the Circuit Magazine, the #1 source of information on protection matters, the industry-leading magazine for all security professionals who want to stay ahead of the game.
Understanding the academic studies in intelligence. What is it as a topic? Why is it important? Why is academia even relevant for today's EP professional? I'm here with Sean West. What an interesting angle. I know people gravitate towards academic studies in times of unemployment or underemployment, and perhaps with the drawdown, I don't know, maybe more people will go in this direction. Why is this an important topic?
I think when you look at any industry, people will say, what's the most important? Is it practical skills or is it academia? Or is it a mix of the two? I've started as a soldier, I got practical skills and then started in the industry. And then I've done academia on the side, be that in distance learning or attending different courses and trying to have a mix of the two. And because you get a lot of people who study straight from when they leave school, go and do a university course, but they don't get that real world experience in carrying out the particular role. So I think definitely we need a mix of the two. And I think talking to Samantha on her views of this, because she teaches the academic side, it'd be interesting to see where she's coming from and her thoughts.
Absolutely, because for many industries, it's sort of a case, and I didn't create this quote of barbarians to the boardroom. Right? You start off, you're let's say you're starting up a company, you're finding your way, and once you've got down the line, then you go and do a summer MBA course because it's the seal of approval on top of many years of hard work. And a similar thing can be said, because a lot of people go off and do war studies at King's. Is it directly beneficial for your employment? I don't know, but it definitely is good for the soul. And the ability to write academically versus the ability to file lots and lots of reports, certainly an interesting skill set. Do you think that tomorrow's EP professional is going to be required to just have a little more context when operating?
For sure. I think this day and age, there's so many bums and not enough seats. So you have to separate yourself from everyone else you're competing with so many people vying for these positions. What can you do that's going to make you different to the next man? And academia is one form of study you carry out. There's other courses that you may look at also, practical courses. You just got to find your niche, stick with it, get them ticks in the box, and promote yourself, network, and think outside the box. If you just stay in one lane, you're going to really struggle when there's so many people out there vying for these positions.
There are, aren't there? And actually, one thing I'd say that today's EP professional has over all these people coming directly from university is you've got experience.
That's right.
So you're going to have some things to write about in these academic things. You're going to know where to go for sources. You're going to actually contextualize all the work that you've been doing. Myself, personally, when I did my undergrad, I thought, you know what, let's do a master's. So I did a master's and it came out and I thought, right, now what? And everyone was like, yeah, but you don't have the practical experience. So I think this is a winning formula. And of course, with the drawdown in Afghanistan, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know if there's going to be more demand for work, less demand for work. And of course, our thoughts and prayers are with them at the moment. But I feel that there could be a sudden demand on academia.
Yeah, no, 100%. People are definitely going to gravitate towards it because they come back from wherever it may be. It may not be Afghanistan. It may be other employment that's come to an end through COVID. You've got to look, as we've just discussed, at how can you increase your skill set. And academia, for sure, is something that we can all do. Some people may say they haven't got the time, but I'm a very busy individual myself. But I do try to study where I can and look at courses or methods I can increase my skill set and knowledge. And I think everyone should do the same. any way you can improve yourself, you should certainly be looking at that.
Absolutely. Love it. And of course, that's great motivation for our listeners and the EP community. We're going to hear, of course, Dr. Samantha Newbery, reader at Salford University. And in fact, you might remember Samantha was a speaker back at the first Close Protection Technology Forum in 2016. She's done lots of other presentations since then, but I think that's a nice tie-in with what we're doing. And it's great to mix and match with the wider subset of topics. Let's hear from Dr. Samantha Newbery, and let's learn about the value of academic intelligence studies.
And now, let's meet one of the contributors to the Circuit magazine.
Academic intelligence studies and its applicability to the corporate security world. Today, we are very, very pleased to be joined by Dr. Samantha Newbery, reader in international security at the University of Salford. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me.
My pleasure. Great to have you on. We know you spoke at the very first CP Tech Forum a few years ago. I know that was a slightly different topic, but it's great to have you back. I'm here with Sean West, and together we're going to uncover this topic, and very timely because, of course, a lot of people are looking at the world of academia. But first off the bat, let's look at, academic intelligence studies. What problem is it attempting to solve?
This academic approach to intelligence studies is very much something that's rooted in political science and in history. And it seeks to understand the role that generally state intelligence agencies, like civilian agencies like MI5 and the armed forces intelligence sections, have played in decision making, how they've supported policy making, what's gone wrong, where fault lies, if you can place fault somewhere along the process when policy has not gone right. And that can be from issues in not collecting the right intelligence, but maybe the intelligence wasn't there in the first place. You can't find out what attack is being planned if it hasn't been planned yet, through to issues in analysing that intelligence, such as bias and looking for particular arguments in that intelligence to support pre-existing expectations, through to decision makers simply ignoring intelligence.
I see. Okay. No, very, very key. And I can already see some applicability to the world of corporate security. But what about you? Where does your enthusiasm for this, line of inquiry actually come from?
It's an interest that I've had since I began my university studies. I won't tell you how long ago that was. At that point, I was studying politics and strategic studies and didn't know that intelligence studies was an academic subject. I didn't know it was something that you could study, that there was enough about it in the public domain that you could know anywhere near as much about it as we can. And my particular interest stems from the intersection of intelligence practice with counterterrorism. So how do we find out what terrorists are planning and use that to inform counterterrorism tactics up to counterterrorism policies? And therefore, I'm particularly interested in legal issues and ethical issues surrounding intelligence.
No, very much understood. And that ethics is something that I think will always play a key role. But what about the people out there who are completely uninitiated? We talk about intelligence as if everybody knows what it is, but what should the completely uninitiated know about this topic?
The uninitiated, sadly, probably think of James Bond. That is not an accurate representation of what intelligence officers do. They do comply with laws and guidelines and regulatory frameworks. For the uninitiated, it's a lot of the intelligence collected for governments is from open sources. The vast majority of it is from open sources, so it's not quite as secret as people may believe. Obviously, the good old-fashioned espionage taking place in embassies and so on is very common and is to be expected, but it's not what it can generate key pieces of information, but it's not where the vast majority comes from.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to ask. As part of my role, I've carried out a lot of open source intelligence training, and I really enjoy it. I think it's fascinating, the things that you can find out on people, individuals, places. Once you've done a bit of training, what you can find out is crazy, even to someone that has no training. So what's the actual difference between open source intelligence courses and the academic study of intelligence?
Okay, so the academic study of intelligence isn't so much a training course in how to do intelligence, but there are a lot of kind of a handful, half a dozen or so master's programs in intelligence studies in the UK, for instance, and they will take you through the broader picture. So a lot of students who work in intelligence, whether that's the private sector, the armed forces, the police, or any other organisation, they are experts in what they do, but they really benefit, they tell us, from being led through the wider picture, the wider debates, and the whole of the intelligence process, because they tend to be more narrowly focused on what they do, and they can be absolutely excellent in that. But the wider process, where what they do, fits into their organisations and beyond. I wrote a book called Why Spy with a former deputy chief of MI6, and he was trained when he first joined MI6 in how to plant bugs and microphones, hidden microphones, and so on. But he was never told what happened to that information once he collected it. And he was convinced that it was helpful to know what people were going to do with that information once he'd collected it and passed it on.
Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing the best form of training would be a mix of the two. So some open source intelligence training and some of the academic side as well.
I believe so. Obviously, coming from a university, I'm likely to say that, but I do genuinely believe that. And a university course will teach you about the current threats to Western countries, maybe other countries, and how that all fits together, how policy is formed, and how policy then filters down to the lower levels about how much resources each state organisation gets and what the priorities given to those organisations are.
Yeah, I was going to leave you on my next question. So what's the value of academic studies in intelligence to the real world?
Yeah, so there are a number of approaches to that. One is the skills development that people will get if they study intelligence. The research and analysis and communication skills are very similar to what they're probably already doing in their careers, but it really helps bring them along in that. That's the training, kind of skills training element of studies. The purpose of the academic study of intelligence more broadly is to inform decision makers, whether they be in intelligence agencies, governments, or large corporations or smaller corporations. It's about understanding what's gone wrong in the past, in history, understanding the pressures that are placed on the individual operative right up to the decision maker, so that future decisions can be as well informed and as effective as possible.
Samantha, I like the sentiment you sort of raised about the former leader in the community, shall we say, about why it's necessary to see where your information is going, because obviously that helps you get motivated. It helps you understand the wider picture, as you say. But there's often, let's say, there's a close protection professional and they've got a period of downtime, perhaps in the current drawdown. They are less employed, or perhaps they're going to be more employed, but let's say they're less employed. Some of their initial reaction is, I know I will go and do training. So perhaps here's a reverse question. Who shouldn't do academic training in this area? Is there any category of person, perhaps some stage of someone's career? I don't know, who shouldn't do it?
That's not quite. I haven't had that question phrased quite from that angle before. It's that needs some more thought. The majority of people who do it are at one of two career phases. They're either at the phase where they've been doing the job for about 10 years and they're looking to get promoted, and so they want a qualification to help with that, or they're about to leave the armed forces or the civil service to go into the private sector. And despite years and years of experience, again, they want a qualification to back that up and to go with it.
No, I see. And I guess there is a standard that people want to reach, and perhaps people want to prove that they've reached a level. They might have been practicing a lot and they don't have a piece of paper. They don't have something, to show people. What are your thoughts on the general landscapes or of people joining academia? What sort of fundamentals do they need before they embark on a master's? Because generally, I would have imagined, master's requires undergrad, but not necessarily so. So what sort of preparation would someone need to go through?
You're right. An undergraduate degree isn't generally required for a master's program to get onto a master's program, as long as you have generally around 10 years or almost 10 years of experience in a relevant field. And what we're looking for there is an ability to be successful on the master's program. We don't set anybody up to fail. So we want an ability to to be given an essay question or a short discussion question, and to identify what information is relevant to that, and then to present that in written form in a way that puts across an argument. And that should sound very familiar to a lot of practitioners working in this field already.
I suppose, yeah, they're forever filling out reports and doing paperwork, and technology has tried to take that away from them, but actually maybe that's a good skill to hang on to. In the wider picture then, do you think people need intelligence studies more? Some people talk about an obesity information epidemic or something, to that effect, where there's so much information and, lots of people are trying to say, buy my sparkly technology solution. It will tell you everything that's going on, and everything is not intelligence, is it? So is it more vital now than ever that people actually get to grips with this?
Yeah, I'm inclined to say yes, because there is so much information now that is out there digitally, especially with social media and the ability for anybody to put something online in a form that is accessible to everybody. That means there is an absolute abundance of data. Now, these technology platforms, pieces of software, can be absolutely fantastic and really powerful, but they're not going to fully process or assess or evaluate that data for you. You still need the human input at various stages of the process. So, for instance, if you're interested in a particular terrorist group in a particular part of the world, you can put in search terms for what that organization tends to be called. But now and again, somebody will start calling it something else. And unless a human being is reading all of some of those, say, social media posts, to twig that that's a new term being used and then to enter that into the system, I'm not sure that the system is going to identify that themselves. And then anyone who's done it will know that when you read through large amounts of information, you come to conclusions and impressions about it that I'm not convinced that technology can do for you.
Yeah, I think you're totally right there. There's some fantastic tools out there that can help you gather information from different data points and narrow down your search, but without that human element to filter it and, I guess, pick the flower from the weeds. You can't do that with machine only.
Yes, and that's a term that in intelligence studies, we call it signals and noise. So the vast amount of data that you get is the noise, and you're trying to find the signals, the things that are actually significant for you amongst all that noise.
And it's often there that perhaps some of the governmental organizations are called out. They said, how could you not have known it was in the noise? Well, yes, in the noise, but there's a difference. And that difference, and maybe this ties to one of those quickfire questions about, what you want the uninitiated to really understand. Does it annoy you or concern you at the amount of people wandering around saying, I've got some intelligence. But what they actually have is some information. And I guess it'd be useful maybe, again, for those uninitiated people and for, the people who are completely in the know, I do apologize. But for those other people, what's the real difference, in your opinion, between data and intelligence?
The academic intelligence studies view on that is that your unprocessed material, as you collect it, say off social media, is your data or your information. And only once you've evaluated it and picked for reliability to find out which you should believe and which you shouldn't, and pieced it all together and produced it into an output, whether that's a written report or an oral presentation, only then does it become intelligence, because only then is it something that you can use. But the caveat to that is that sometimes there is that one piece of information that is the missing piece of the puzzle, that is the piece that will allow the police to prevent an imminent terror attack. So I think there is a danger in saying that that individual piece of information cannot be intelligence, because that kind of assumes that it's not useful. But then again, it is only useful if you've got the other pieces of the puzzle, in terms of where that key piece might be what time the attack is planned for, but without knowing where it's going to take place, which will come from other sources, then it's not as useful.
Absolutely. And I'm sure everyone has seen the television programs, No Piece of Information Too Small. And the NCIS people will definitely make extrapolations. One topic that I did want to ask you about, and this is related to some of your wider work and what you spoke about back in 2016 at the CP Tech Forum, ethics. It might sound to a lot of people, oh no, ethics, it's just regulatory this and compliance that. Why is ethics and intelligence gathering such an important issue?
It is an important issue, partly because people misunderstand what the term ethics means. When we start talking about ethics, it is not about somebody coming in and saying you should not do that, you should not do the other. There are all sorts of different systems of ethics in moral philosophy, and I'm not going to go into moral philosophy, but some of them say anything goes. If you believe that anything goes because that's what's right, that is your ethical position. So ethics sometimes means you should do whatever on earth you want to try and get your information and to use it. So in that sense, ethics is perhaps not as restrictive as a lot of people think. Where it's useful is in indicating what the norms are in society, what societal expectations that a particular type of organisation, how they will behave, and it can inform, and it always does inform, those regulatory frameworks that are in place, whether that's legislation or an organisation's individual code of ethics. It's very difficult to train people in ethics insofar as it's something that it is kind of intrinsic to you and your values, and it takes a long time to change those, and that's why we have the list of do's and don'ts that goes with those list of principles that organisations aspire to.
I think ethics as well, whilst it's a personal thing, I think working with government agencies and things who happen to have a lot of red tape when they're researching subject things, to go into the private sector, I you cut a lot of that red tape because you don't have the same restrictions with individuals doing research in different areas. So that's something else to think about as well. I know government organisations too have been held back from research in certain areas, so they've actually went out to the private sector and attacked it from another angle by utilising people who maybe have different ethics or they don't have the same red tape that the government agency may have.
Yeah, and it works the other way as well, in that the private sector don't have access to the same, or aren't allowed under law to use the same kinds of intrusive surveillance methods that state intelligence agencies are as well. So it works both ways.
You touched on people in the private sector perhaps having different obligations or still needing ethics compared to the government sector. Would you like to see more people working in the private sector in private organizations studying intelligence? Because I know a lot of the people that come to your course are from the public sector, the government sector, military. Would you like to see more from the private sector?
I would, and I think scholars and academics in intelligence studies have to acknowledge that they have a long way to go in terms of acknowledging that intelligence is something that exists in the private sector. Their focus has always been overwhelmingly on national security intelligence and what state agencies do to protect their countries and their governments. But there are so many similarities between what they do and what is done on such a wide scale in the private sector. And I am very keen to encourage fellow intelligence studies scholars to fully embrace that and to reflect that in their writings. And that in turn should help encourage more people working in private intelligence to go to their universities.
And I mean, just as an aside, I know I actually got taught by some, there are a lot of social historians who really would love everyone to forget about the kings and queens version of history, because they say, the real history is in the private hands of the peasant or the individual. Is it not, however, much more difficult to do studies about intelligence in the private sector? Surely the reason it's not done more is because it's a bit more difficult. You might have minutes from some 1950s or 60s, cabinet meeting on military matters, but you won't know about some corporation.
Yeah, that's right. There are two responses to that. You're absolutely right. So the government has a duty to release at least some of its written records from minutes from cabinet meetings and so on into its national archives, as long as they're not too sensitive from a security perspective. But also, I think there is already some work being done, academic work on intelligence in the private sector. In some ways, there are business studies, people who work on elements of market intelligence, competitive intelligence for companies. There is some being done, but as academics, we need to talk to each other a bit more across disciplines. Intelligence studies is good at being interdisciplinary, as we call it, and that political scientists and historians work together in intelligence studies. But we need to acknowledge that there is more relevant research taking place in business studies, in particular criminology and policing, that's very similar to what we do, and that we should work together to create a body of knowledge that's to everybody's benefit.
Love it. Well, I feel empowered to go and do some academia now, and not that I have time, or maybe I do with all the distance learning options. I think this is tremendously relevant, and I think especially with the drawdown and colleagues looking at what to do next, I think this is an absolutely vital skill set to have, and maybe even motivation to have, because you want to see how you plug into the bigger picture, as you said earlier, which I think is good. Sean, do you have anything else for Samantha?
No, it's fantastic. I'm going to have to sign up, get a copy of her book, have a read of that.
Very good.
I'm going to sink my teeth into that.
I love it. Well, what's next for you, Samantha?
Continuing research. So I'm writing a book about, it's called Terrorist Informers. It's about the use of informers within terrorist organisations in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, specifically the massive legal and ethical issues that were raised by that. Because if you've got an informer who you know is involved with terrorism, if you charge them with an offence, if they go to prison, they no longer can provide you with that potentially life-saving intelligence. So there are some considerable practical difficulties for policymakers and handlers of informers, and they're very difficult to resolve. So that's something that I'm very much in the midst of at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds thrilling and actually rather edgy, a bit dangerous even. I don't know. I think we're definitely going to have to read that when it comes out. But fantastic. Well, Dr. Samantha Newbery, thank you for joining us. From Sean and myself, it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you both very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samantha Newbery. Intelligence in academia, ethics, and you know what? Contextualizing what you do, the bigger picture. I love that as a sentiment. What have you taken from it today, Sean?
Well, I do have a passion for open source intelligence trading, and it's great to see that there is an academic side where I can look to further my studies. Will I go on to do that? I don't know yet. Maybe I'm not there yet. Certainly something I'd like to consider down the line. So it was great to hear from her for sure.
Absolutely. And, for everyone out there, of course, it doesn't have to be intelligence studies. Samantha would probably love it to be, but war studies, defense studies, security studies. But what I like about intelligence studies is it is an academic inquiry into something skills-based. I'm not saying the others are not necessarily, but I like that. And of course, with the Circuit Magazine, we're bringing the pages of the magazine to life. We do these interviews. It's not so much a Michael Aspel, this is your life. It's much more contextual, isn't it? It's much more thematic.
Yeah, for sure. We've got issue 59, which will be coming out this week. Lots of good articles in there on manners and etiquette, how-tos of high-risk meetings, conflict de-escalation, and international protection for protecting VIPs overseas. Lots of great articles from some fantastic providers. So please sign up to that and let us know what you think.
That would be great. Yeah, please subscribe to the magazine so you don't miss an episode of the magazine. It's episode 59. What a glut of back catalogs we've had. In the news, I want to say Craig McKim, who of course we've had on a previous podcast. Craig McKim put on a fantastic All Protectors networking event in Columbus, Ohio this past weekend. It's really nice, especially for the people in that region to get together. So if you were there, well done. Nice. And also thanks to Craig for bringing the community together. Please keep your comments coming on the Protector app. So many things going on. In fact, this week, I can't even do a roll call of the best posts because there's been so many. The BBA Connect app, thank you. Please keep the comments coming. Lots of thoughts to our veteran family, because of course they will be very thoughtful about what's going on in Afghanistan at the moment. And also a special mention, and we want you to know that we're with you, to our actual members who are actually in Afghanistan right now.
Yeah, we wish you a safe return.
Absolutely. So, from Sean and myself, it's been a pleasure talking to Dr. Samantha Newbery of Salford University today. Please do check out her profile and her next book. And we look forward to welcoming you to another thematic version of the Circuit Magazine podcast.
You have been listening to the Circuit Magazine podcast. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to not miss an episode.